Sorry, was that not ladylike? Oh, hi! Welcome to Sunday Tea with me. Yes, it's a thing now. So today I'll be answering one of your questions. Elias asks, how not to think in genres and make music like when we were young and had no clue about music theory or muscle memory. Now first of all, let me just define the problem again in my own words. You might work with your DAW or DAW a certain way, and every time you open it and you want to try something new, you notice your fingers just start going into autopilot. You open a MIDI track or a normal track, you just start making the same beat patterns over and over again because this is what you're used to. How do we break out of that, and how do we really make the music that we think sounds good? So I'm going to give you 5 plus 2 bonus tips at the end. Number 1, follow your curiosity. When you make music, try and be extra sensitive to what's piquing your interest. Did you just hit a note randomly and you really liked the interval? Or did you just go through all your presets and you really liked something and you were curious, hey, why does this sound like that? Try and notice these little bits of curiosity and follow those. Just see where it takes you. And in following your curiosity, you'll better understand what your own voice is and what is inside of you and where it's leading you. Number 2. Be mindful of the excuses. Now, as you begin to follow your curiosity, something really interesting is going to happen. And you might not notice it at first, but I encourage you to just try and be aware of it. Is you're going to start making excuses. Try and realize what excuses you're making and when you're making them. So for instance, you might think, oh, this chord progression sounds really cool. It could be a simple 1 to 5 chord progression or just C major to G major, but it might be in a really interesting voicing. Now what might happen in that instant is you might say, oh, that's just a simple C major to G major, there's nothing interesting there, and you might just bypass it. Whoa, wait a second. What just happened there? Something sparked your curiosity and you made an excuse as to why that can't be worth your time. So how about playing devil's advocate in those instances? Hey, why can't a C to G chord progression here be the very thing that this song needs? And your excuse might not be with chord progressions, it could be with a way of working with your DAW, it could be the plugins you use. You could think, oh, I always need to sidechain before the reverb, but what if you put it after the reverb? Don't let the excuses hold you back from trying new things. Number 3. Love every moment of your music. Once you've finished your song and you're deciding whether this is something you want to release or take further or not, listen to it very critically, but listen to it with your heart and decide, do I love every moment of this track? If you want to find your voice, I think it's really important for you to create music that you love every moment of. And you shouldn't settle for just having moments that are okay. This is something I experimented with a lot in my 3rd Lumaberry track, and I actually talk about it in Making Lumaberry episode 3. So if you're interested in watching that, you can check out my video in the iCard there or in the description. Now, like I said at the beginning, these tips are for very specific scenarios. If you're writing music for a client and the client loves it and you're kind of meh about it, but the deadline is coming, sometimes we don't have the luxury to just be in love with everything we create. But if you are trying to find your voice, and if you're not limited by needing to sell a certain amount of records to a certain amount of audience and so forth, and you're purely just trying to make music that sounds good to you, then by all means make sure that you love every moment of your track. Number 4. Here's a fun exercise for you to do, and it's gonna be a little scary, but you can do it, I promise. Set aside some time, decide before you start that you're gonna delete whatever you create, and you're creating purely for the enjoyment of it. Now you might think, well, what if I make something I like? Can I then keep my project? See, if you keep it, you might feel obligated to work with it another way, or you might feel obligated to do certain things, and the whole point of this is to try and lessen this feeling of obligation and increase this feeling of free creative flow. Number 5. Don't care what people think. Now, I know you've heard it a million times, but let me explain this in a different way. If you grew up around a certain type of musician, maybe classical musicians or rock musicians, you might think that you have to follow certain rules. But if you're really questioning why you think you need to follow these rules, you might come to find that at the root of it, it is because you think this is what other people expect of you. Try and let go of other people's expectations of yourself. If you let other people's expectations of yourself control your life, you'll find yourself living someone else's life and you won't recognize yourself, and your life is far too valuable to just end up living someone else's life instead. Sure, that got pretty deep, but now guys, I have 2 bonus tips for you. Try and stay away from outside influences for a while. If you're trying to find your own voice, it's going to be really hard to do that with all these other voices around you. And finally, throw a spanner in the works. This is also something I've been experimenting with a lot in my Making Numaberry episodes. So I used to spend quite a lot of time on music, and I'm trying to drastically reduce that time because I tend to overthink things. Now, if I give myself far less time to make a song, I need to make decisions quicker and move on, otherwise the end result suffers. So through this exercise, I'm learning to be more decisive, and I'm learning to listen to my inner voice. Now for you, it might mean using a completely different DAW for a while. It might mean learning a new instrument. But whatever you do, try and flip your workflow on its head. So if you guys have any tips that I've missed, please do share them below. Thank you, Elias, for your question. If you have any other questions or video suggestions, just check out my community tab on YouTube, or you can check out my Instagram, where I regularly ask questions about what kind of video you might want to see, and maybe I can answer one of your questions in an up-and-coming Sunday Tea with me. Otherwise, I will see you guys either on Instagram, on Twitter, or later on YouTube in the next one. Oh, my foot is numb. Numb. I'm just gonna have to sit here for a while the blood comes back into my foot. Okay, cool, the feeling's back in my leg. Bye!